podcast, and I am joined on this show by regular presenter of the Morning Commute in the UK, Clémence Chatelin. Hey, Clem.
Hi, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a little bit later in the afternoon there. It's 6:30 in the morning here in Las Vegas, but it's great to be here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think it's such a great way to meet people in our profession from all around the world. So I'm very happy to be on this show.
Yes, and it's great to have you here. And speaking of being all over the world, Clem, you actually speak 5 languages. And I've always thought, people are like, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? And I travel all over the world and I work with people around the world. And I'm like, actually, I just wish I could speak a lot of languages. So what are those 5 languages you speak?
So my family's French, so I speak French fluently. I grew up in Germany, so I speak German because I went to school there. And then obviously, as you can hear, I can speak English, which I learned at school. But at school, I also learned Spanish, and at university, I learned Mandarin Chinese. But I would say Spanish and Mandarin Chinese, I can get around, but I'm not fluent in those languages. So 3 I'm fluent in.
Yeah, that's still super impressive. And I know once you start to learn those, and it does make it easier to get around different languages. And you've also lived in 4 countries.
Yeah, so I've lived, well, France, Germany, and the UK, and I lived in China for a year. So yeah, that's 4 together. I mean, I hope that with working from home and all these things, I can convince my employer to let me live other places sometimes. Okay, we're still talking about how we want to travel. So I'd love to be able to live for a month, I don't know, somewhere for a month and just get on with my life. And yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, that'll be the super interesting thing. I mean, I've worked remotely for, I think, 15 years now, and I've worked all over the world, and I started a completely remote business. And, so I've been doing it for a long time. So it's been really interesting to see throughout the lockdown, other people being like, oh, yeah, maybe I could travel and do this. And employers starting to open up their minds to how that works. And look, it helps us think about how we can help clients across borders and the fact that you don't have to be limited to who you work with from geographic location.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think depending on the clients you serve, like the clients we serve at Paradigm Norton are usually, I would say they're still technologically adept, but we have some clients who will have access issues, and so we always think, oh, we're just going to do this by video and do this password protected use a computer, but there is always guaranteed a few of them where it's like, what password protect document, what is this? Just send you the post. So it's always quite tricky issue sometimes. I'm all for implementing tech, but I do appreciate that some clients, they just need paper in the post and signing it and sending it back, and that's the most efficient way to get them to do something.
Yeah, and for some people, it's the only option. So even though I've been, all about virtual for a really long time, yesterday in the US was Father's Day. And so I called my dad, and he's going to be 70 on Christmas Day this year. And for the first time, he said he actually ordered a mobile phone. So he has not had a mobile like ever. He had one for work, but he retired 10 years ago. And it's like, it's just so funny that I'm all out here talking about technology. And my dad has never in his life sent a text or had a mobile phone. So never had a smartphone. So kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think with my family, I think my grandma, she has an Apple Watch and she has an iPhone and she has the iPad and she's all connected and virtual and everything. But my other grandma, she didn't even learn how to drive a car. That was, she's just never had the internet. She doesn't know what it is.
Yeah. No, that just emphasizes. So we need financial planners to be able to relate to all clients out there, whether it's a technology thing, experience thing, absolutely. So Clem, super looking forward to this show. And along the way, throughout the 24-hour global commute, this is a charity event that will be raising money for Quad A, which is the Association of African American Financial Advisors, and Color of Change, both supporting the Black Lives Matter movement in the US. And the team in the UK is raising money for 2 great charities in CF Warriors, which helps kids overcome cystic fibrosis, and the Stroke Association. And we'd also like to encourage people in any other countries to donate to a charity of your choice and then message us to let us know so we can add your donation to the total and really show what can happen when the global financial planning community comes together. So we're going to have more on those charity challenges later in the show. But Clem, what do we have coming up for this show?
So on this show, we have an interview with Cary List. Cary has led FP Canada, and before that, its predecessor, the Financial Planning Standards Council, since 2006. So he is very uniquely positioned to tell us about how financial planning is developing in Canada. We also are joined by Justin King of MFP Wealth Management and the Retirement Cafe podcast, who is looking at marketing your financial planning business and with our marketing focus for this show. But first, we have the news with new model advisor, actually Citywire, this show is brought to us by Jake Martin. Over to you, Jake.
Great, thanks, Clémence. I'm Jake Martin, reporter at Citywire RIA here in New York City. The city that never sleeps is certainly living up to its name lately. Illegal fireworks are being set off in soaring numbers across New York City, often starting before sunset and continuing on into the early morning hours. And I can say that from personal experience. So for some people, the fireworks kind of serve as a release after months of boredom and seclusion, in their apartments during the COVID-19 lockdown. For others, they are a celebration of the strides made during recent protests across the city against police brutality and systemic racism. Not everyone is a fan of all the pyrotechnics. The city has received more than 1,700 fireworks complaints in just the first half of June, and that's 80 times as many as it received in the same period of last year. That's according to the New York Times. So with the country's 4th of July celebration still nearly 2 weeks away, it's not expected that all those pops, cracks, and booms are going to be going anywhere soon, which is bad news for my dog, who is terrified. So over in the RIA space, mergers and acquisitions are still happening, despite a bit of a slowdown in activity due to the pandemic. We saw a pretty notably large deal across the line last week with Crescent Asset Management's acquisition of Pagnotto Carp, which is an RIA and multifamily office based in the Washington, D.C. area, and they have about $2.3 billion in assets under management. So this was the largest acquisition to date for Crescent, which has been aggressively buying RIAs in key cities throughout the U.S. That's since its founding in 2017 by a pair of private equity investors. So Crescent has nearly tripled in size through acquisitions over just the past year or so. They're a Chicago-based firm that now manages about $9.5 billion in assets across 8 U.S. offices, and that's including in Atlanta, San Francisco, Denver, Seattle. So we're talking pretty major hubs here. The firm claims that it's now in the top 25 RIAs in terms of size. Paul Pagnotto, chief executive of Pagnotto Carp, kind of touted the combination as, quote, a new paradigm for wealth management by democratizing the family office. Now, there's some skepticism that has been expressed by industry players about the motivations for Pagnotto and his co-founder David Karp to sell. The firm had originally broken away from the wirehouse world of Merrill Lynch in 2011 for Hightower Advisors, which also happens to be a Chicago-based RIA roll-up. And it had actually been going alone as an independent RIA since 2016. So some kind of saw this as a bit of a retreat to higher ground to kind of take care of succession planning and tap into some capabilities that come, with the scale and resources that a firm the size of Crescent can bring to them. Both founders are in their 50s. They will remain with the firm. Crescent's workforce now clocks in around 150 employees, including Pagnotto Carp's roughly 30 employees. And the expectation is that the Pagnotto Carp brand will stick around for maybe a year or so before there's a full transition to the Crescent name. Back to you.
Thanks, Jake. It's really, as you were telling us before, the nuisance of the fireworks are really, really horrible. I have a similar story when I was in China. There were firecrackers going on during Chinese New Year for a whole month in Beijing, and it went through all the nights and all the days. So I can very much empathize with the pain currently. So next we have Chris Budd. So over to you, Kate, to introduce Chris Budd.
Sure. So Chris is the host of the Financial Wellbeing podcast and the Initiative for Financial Wellbeing. And keeping on that theme, he's joining us for the Financial Wellbeing Thought of the Day. Chris, what do you have for us on this show?
Thanks, Kate. Hello, everybody. Hello, Canada, which is very exciting. I'm also, there's lots of people doing amazing charity things, which we'll hear about at the end of the show. I'm doing a charity, change your shirt to me another horrible shirt every time thing. So this is my fourth one so far, so I hope you approve of the pandas. The Initiative for Financial Wellbeing is an organization, a new institute dedicated to helping financial planning to focus on well-being, on helping clients to be happier, not just wealthier. Interesting to hear that news about various wealth managers just basically gathering big lumps of investments and making money from them. For me, that is the opposite of financial planning and financial well-being. I'm sure those firms do good jobs in that respect as well, he said quickly. So one little tip about financial well-being today then, there's a psychological theory called the hedonic treadmill. Now, the hedonic treadmill is an expression that describes how things that we do have a positive or negative effect on our well-being, but it's only temporary. So the theory goes, we have a set point of well-being which we arrive at in adult life through our experiences of childhood, and that's our level of well-being is then set for the rest of our lives, and things happen to us like lockdowns and pandemics which hit us below that level of set point of well-being. So we are constantly trying to find little hits of well-being to get us back up to that level. So if we buy stuff, for example, that gives a short-term burst of well-being, but it doesn't have any long-term effect. So financial planning and financial advice should be based around helping people to find meaning, purpose, motivations, and in that way they can have much longer term lasting effects on well-being and reverse the effect of the hedonic treadmill and keep us up to our set point of well-being. So long-term motivation, purpose, meaningful, those are the words that should be behind every financial plan.
Thanks, Chris. Very insightful as ever, your tips for financial well-being. Kate is now going to chat next to Cary List. So over to Kate and Cary.
Fantastic. Thanks, Clem. And Chris, I love pandas. I think more pandas everywhere could make the world a better place. So good on you for that shirt. That's great. So I am really excited to introduce our next guest, Cary List, the president and CEO of FP Canada. He has been at the forefront of financial planning in Canada for the last 2 decades and is doing really incredible things. So, hey, Cary.
Hey, how are you, Kate?
I am doing great. Thank you for joining us here on this global commute. And Cary, before we get into what you are currently up to, share with us a little bit about your career to date and how you got to where you are today.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And what a great segue. I hadn't heard Chris's that story, and it's a great segue because I have to say that I came upon financial planning honestly, and a lot of the reasons that Chris mentioned around the value and the importance of financial planning really were at the core of why I got into financial planning. I actually started my career as I got a degree in math, so I one of the very few bachelors of mathematics back in the day, and I started my career as an accountant. So I was a CA, CPA, and I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I worked as a CA for 5 years. I did a lot of IT and real estate work, and loved and still love IT and real estate. But 5 years on, I realized I needed something more. There was something missing. I was pretty good as an accountant, but and I liked the business aspect, but I was brought up in a household that making a difference in society was really ingrained in my psyche, and I wasn't getting that as an accountant. And at 29, Kate, you appreciate it. I think I quit my career. I spent a year traveling around the world, mostly in the third world, Africa and East Asia. The old trying to find myself. I came back. I hadn't quite found myself, but I knew I didn't want to go back to being an accountant. and still proud of being an accountant. But that's it was sort of the early 90s, and I discovered financial planning. And a friend of mine had asked if I could come do some corporate workshops for a company that had a contract with the provincial government at the time. Employees were all being downsized. This is in the early 90s, and it was a terrible recession, et cetera. And they were being offered retirements and exit incentives, and they needed some help through the financial decisions they had to make. And, you know, I'm allowed to say this as an accountant. We all, you know, accountants seem to think that they know everything. So I said, how hard can this be? And I started doing these workshops, and I realized how very quickly that I actually didn't know 2/3 of what I was supposed to be teaching these folks, and really how much important knowledge and guidance these employees were missing. Their lives depended on getting good advice. These are life decisions, and you know, just to Chris's point, these are around their long-term happiness, and this wasn't just financial. And to be honest, I realized that was when I realized that I could marry all my accounting and math skills with making a difference, and that's when I charted the path to becoming a CFP. Spent the rest of the 90s really mostly helping transitioning some firms from deposit taking and mutual fund sales shops into financial planning firms. And in 2000, I had the opportunity to start a financial planning degree program as their inaugural director at a college in Toronto. Spent 3 years setting up their degree program, and then FP Canada's predecessor organization came knocking this was back in 2002, asked if I would join them as their vice president standards and certification. Jumped at the opportunity, became CEO in 2006, and 18 years later, here I am today. So there you go.
That's fantastic. And you know, I love that story about just quitting your job and traveling the world. I think everyone should spend time traveling, whether it's, you know, to volunteer somewhere, to go work, to go backpack. And your story also highlights the fact that financial planners come from all different kinds of backgrounds. And I love everybody's different story of how they find this profession. And Cary, over the last number of years, like I said, you've done really great stuff at FP Canada. You guys are kind of revolutionizing a whole lot within financial planning. So tell us about your work at FP Canada and why it's so important.
Sure. You know, it's hard to know where to start. We've been so busy the last 5 years on so many things. But I'd say FP Canada is really at the forefront of financial advice in Canada. Our decisions and our actions are having a profound effect on the industry, and also really on the wellness of all Canadians. So it's pretty far-reaching. And in fact, this last year we refined our statement of purpose. And I love the comment about purpose, because really, whether it's organizationally or personally, without purpose we have nothing. And so we've really refined our purpose statement. We say that our purpose at FP Canada is to champion better financial wellness for all Canadians. I think you could say wellness, but we say wellness through better management of people's finances. And our mandate is to advance professional financial planning, not to advance the profession, but to advance the service of financial planning as a professional service. And, you know, if we look at the era, the COVID-19 era we're in today, I think with today's economic environment, it's more important than ever. We've always known at FP Canada that you know, consumers deserve to be served by true professionals, and that financial planning really needs to be recognized as a profession for the benefit of all Canadians. I would say, Kate, we're not there yet. We're a long way from it. Consumers really don't understand how profound an impact appropriate quality financial planning can have on their lives, and not just on their finances, but on their happiness and on their wellness. I think the financial advice industry is now only coming around 25 years on from FP Canada's inception. And they're realizing that sound, ethical, professional financial planning is the future of financial advice and the future of financial services. And I'm really pleased to say that we're leading the way in Canada. We confer the pinnacle designation for financial planning worldwide in Canada, CFP certification. We've introduced a new designation called the Qualified Associate Financial Planner certification. And Kate, we had the word all in our purpose statement, advancing, championing financial wellness for all Canadians. And CFP, reaching a CFP professional may be out of reach for a lot of average Canadians with more typical financial planning needs, but who still need and deserve the services of a professional financial planner. And that's where we introduced QAFP. And, I'd say next to sort of physical and mental health, really wellness in general is predicated on being financially well. And I don't mean rich either. I mean, it's having your finances under control and being financially healthy the way you need to be physically and mentally healthy. And, doctors have a huge impact on society, and doctors have a huge societal responsibility. And our view is at FP Canada that financial planners are the family doctors of the financial services industry, and they also have tremendous responsibility. And we take that responsibility seriously, and we make sure that the financial doctor is appropriately trained and skilled, that we offer the appropriate training and to help them, and that they live up to that tremendous responsibility. So it's a pretty tall task, and we're very, very pleased to be at the forefront of it.
Yeah, very tall task, but so worthy. And, you and I know, Cary, and everybody knows, financial planning is still seen as elitist, but I love that FP Canada is kind of taking a stand and saying, no, it really is for all. And, through creating other designations and through so much of the work you guys are doing at FP Canada, and people coming into the profession and thinking, hey, what's my next career stage? And, how can I work with people? How can I work with, my own either people my age or with similar interests? And a lot of people are thinking, listening to this either live or on a recording, should I get CFP certification? Should I go for it? So what would you say to those people that are considering making the leap and obtaining CFP certification?
Well, look, you just said it. If you're listening to this and you listen to Chris's comments, you listen to what financial planning really, the future of what financial planning is really all about. If you're interested in helping people get what they can out of life, helping them make better financial decisions, better manage their finances so that they can live their life more confidently, which is actually the tagline now in Canada for CFP certification, live life confidently, then frankly, I think financial planning is a career for you. And I think, Kate, you also mentioned people coming at it from different aspects. We're looking, frankly, at trying to get universities to focus on programs that come out of perhaps not the business and finance side, but the social sciences, because we think there's just a great opportunity there to bring a new breed in. And I think in a second I'll talk a little bit about the future of financial planning and the skills that you need. And I think it's almost better managed through social sciences. But look, if you're interested in a career in financial advice, the future is all about financial planning, frankly. And if you want to be a financial planner, you want to become a financial planner, CFP certification is the pinnacle of that. In Canada, QAFP, a great place to start if you're not, you want to go at it gradually. CFP, though, is the most widely recognized financial planning designation around the world. In many countries, it's the only recognized financial planning designation. And I say for the most part, that is true in Canada. And it demonstrates to your clients that you're a true professional, that you're always going to act in your client's best interest. And that is critical. It's not about making money. The money's going to come. It's about doing right for your client. And that there's a great book, I won't talk about this, but about being able to do well by doing good. I think it's a perfect statement for financial planning, and that you're willing to hold yourself accountable for your professional obligations, because if you want to be recognized as a professional, you should be willing to step up and say, I'm going to hold myself accountable. And so you'll be able to demonstrate to your clients, demonstrate to your communities, demonstrate to the world that you really are a true professional. And I guess most importantly, you've got this great opportunity, as I did back in the 90s, to, marry having a great career with all of the skills that you can bring to the table and feel good about really helping others achieve wellness. And that's I mean, what better career can there be than to take the skills that you have and turn it into doing good and make a good living at it.
Yeah, that doing well by doing good is just such a great way of summarizing, one of the aspects of what makes this such an amazing profession. And Cary, what would you say is happening in Canada at the moment within the profession that really makes you smile and proud to represent Canada on this whole global scale?
It's been a crazy few years, Kate, in Canada, I must say. We rebranded what was Financial Planning Standards Council to FP Canada back in April 2019 was the official launch. And that was really to expand our scope so we could do more. So it wasn't just about setting standards. It was about offering quality professional education. It was about reaching consumers more. We've just launched a pro bono program for CFP professionals to partner with members of provincial parliament across the country to help those in need. I would say, though, that the rebranding and launch of our the FP Canada brand and the FP Canada Institute a year ago, last April, was just a huge leap forward. We've had tremendous success with the largest employers in Canada, the big 5 banks as a starting point. And a lot of the independent shops adopting CFP certification. Now the new QAFP certification is getting great traction for those institutions realizing they still have sort of the mass market average consumer that they need to serve and that they need to provide the professional advice there. We've had record number of planners added to the designation in this past year, and that's been exciting. I think also I should mention that after over a decade advocating for restrictions in law as to who's permitted to call themselves a financial planner, we finally have legislation that passed last year in one province, that's in Ontario. We have pending legislation just past second reading in Saskatchewan. And that's really, really exciting because we're seeing that governments are finally listening. They're finally hearing us, and they're seeing that it's really important that financial planning be recognized as a profession in law so that Canadians can be appropriately protected. And I think, Kate, perhaps what I'm most proud of is how the industry and advisors alike are actually buying into this. It's not a new message for us, but I think we've refined it, and it's a new way forward, and they're buying into our message, which is that CFP and QAFP in Canada are now built because we've just completely redefined what it means to be a financial planner. And these programs are now built on what we call the 3H financial planning. It's kind of a cheat on an alliteration so I can remember what it is, but it's holistic, which I think we all can relate to, that financial planning is all about the entirety of one's being, not just whether your investments or your insurance, et cetera. The human side, which is really all brand new, and I'll mention that in a second. And then the third piece, H, is honesty, but we're really talking about impeccable ethics there. And you know, I think the ethical and holistic piece have always been there. It's that addition of the human piece that I'm most proud of, and I think that excites me most. And what excites me most and what I'm most proud of is people are buying what we're selling. And that's that our new professional education programs required for both of our certifications now are built on human behavior, behavioral psychology, behavioral economics. They're hard baked right into the learning. They integrate real world scenarios that help students actually identify what this means in practice into their learning, and you know, how the application of this new science works on the job to help them be better financial planners, to help them achieve better outcomes for their clients, and frankly, to help them have longer lasting, more successful careers as financial planners. And that's incredibly exciting. We're just in the early days, but we have already just under 2,000 students enrolled in our new professional education programs, which are just massive numbers. And the numbers are still rolling in on a daily basis, and that's pretty exciting.
It is super exciting. Well done to all of you. And clearly everything that you're doing at FP Canada is very forward looking. So going with that, what do you think the future of financial planning looks like?
Yeah, it's. I think I've been probably saying this for over a decade, and I'm really pleased again to see that I think it's really here. That the future financial planner needs to be able to offer true differentiation and added value to their clients, to separate themselves from what technology can do. Look, we all know that fintech's here to stay. We know that AI is rapidly advancing, and frankly, if we looked at the old value proposition of being able to do better at investing your client's money than the next guy or gal, that AI and fintech, they've already surpassed that for the average person. The traditional value proposition for financial advisors is gone. And I think the future value proposition really lies in that human touch. And I think that what we're hearing now more than ever is that with the advent of AI, these skills are actually going to be more in demand, because there's a little bit of a pushback. People are really, they're excited and they're willing to use technology, but they're more than ever missing that human element. So I think that consumers are always going to want sage counsel. They're going to want reassurance, guiding light, hand-holding, that they're never going to be able to get even from AI. Even if that AI voice sounds pretty human, humans know that they're not, and they, we all need that human touch. So I see the future of financial planning based much more on the behavioral, relationship, human skills, much less on the technical. I think the technical is always going to be table stakes. We know that, but frankly, knowledge, financial analysis, asset allocation, diversification, portfolio rebalancing, these things are all going to be available at the touch of a button, Kate. And, it's the ability of the planner to interpret that. So they've got to have the knowledge. They've got to be technically competent, but they've got to be able to provide that humanity. They got to have empathy, the ability to hold their clients' hands, so to speak. And I think that's going to be the future of financial planning, and that's going to be the key to being successful as a financial planner in the future. And that's sort of comes around full circle to why I think we need to find future planners from perhaps other than just an alternative to an accounting program.
Yep, definitely. No, I love that. And that's been something we've been seeing around the world, is the need to look at those, social sciences and social services, and just the people that have a lot of those skills inherently for who we're bringing into the profession. And then for those that are already in it, you and I had a great chat on episode 34 of the Innovating Advice podcast on the need to evolve or dissolve. So Cary, thank you so much for joining the Global Commute. Thank you for everything you're doing in Canada to continue pushing the profession forward to make sure that financial wellness is available for everyone.
That's my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun.
Wonderful. And Clem, what do we have next on the show?
So next we have our marketing focus with Justin King, who is going to share some thoughts on promoting the financial planning business. So over to you, Justin. How are you today?
Very well, Clem. Thank you. Lovely to meet you and chat with you today.
So I'm just going to ask a few things around what you're doing today, because you have in the green room, you're talking, you have books, you have podcasts, and it all ties into, you also do work with the Kind Institute. So you're going to join us a few times throughout this Global Commute today. So first, I would like to chat about the marketing focus you have, which you're doing in financial planning. So tell us how you have gone about finding your niche in marketing your business in financial planning.
Yeah, sure. And of course, it's niche for us and niche, I understand, for our American cousins. So, when I was setting out to start this business, MFP Wealth Management, I'd read a lot of books, and I understood that we really needed to be very clear on who we served. And I had always traditionally had served anyone who'd walked in the door. If someone came in and said, I need some advice, I'd try to help them in my previous career. but I could understand all these books I was reading and this knowledge I was taking on, that really it would be quite good to get a really defined audience. Who would that be? Who would I could run a profitable business with? Who would I really well serve? Who would I enjoy working with? And I looked around my community, and I looked at the kind of the clubs I was part of, or the organizations I was part of, and then kind of blindingly obvious, really. But I live in a fishing village called Mudderford in Christchurch on the south coast of the UK, and it's very close to Bournemouth, which is again, Victorians used to come to Bournemouth to retire. And therefore, I looked around my community and I realized there was an awful lot of retirees. And a bit like the local fishermen would do, they would go fishing where the fish were. You've got to have a market to be able to go at. There's no point saying I only want to serve, engineers serving in the British Air Force. If there isn't an Air Force base next to you, you either got to move yourself or that's a wrong market for you to go at. The next thing, I looked at the retirees, and of course I didn't want to serve every retiree. There was only a certain amount of retirees who would have significant enough financial problems that I would be able to offer solutions for. Because that's, of course, what we all do. We all provide solutions. A client is over here and they want to get over there, and we want to help them do the bridge, I suppose, get them from A to B. And were there enough retirees with enough significant problems for me to be able to help? And I kind of did some market research, and I looked at that and I thought, you know what, there are. The other thing I thought, could I really love to work with these people? Were they going to be fun? If I was going to be doing this for the next 10, 20, 30 years, was I going to enjoy it? And I think that's got to be key to all of us. We're not going to serve hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people, but the people we do work with, we've got to enjoy working with them. And in fact, if you enjoy working with people, of course, you're going to love it, and you're going to put much more enthusiasm and energy into doing so. So was I going to enjoy working with retirees? And once I got to know them, and I started to realize the reasons they'd moved, a lot of people had moved to the South Coast, was they were after a better quality of living, they were after the beach life, they were after kind of sailing and holidaying and travel and community, and they were passionate about giving back, and I started to understand what their challenges were, and also I was very enthused about this wonderful period that people had in their lives of this new beginning. And for a lot of retirees, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but for a lot of retirees, it's that next opportunity to do something quite different to the thing that they may have done, or the career they may have done for 20, 30 years. It's that, wow, we've got a bit of financial wealth behind us. What is next? And that energy and that vibrancy that they would bring to the table was fantastic. So yes, that's how I developed my niche. And if I was a 20-something planner today, I would look at a very similar thing. I would look at, okay, so who do I want to serve? Who do I want to work with? What skills can I bring to the table that these people are looking for? How can I get them from island A to island B? Can I walk with them on that path? And what are their needs? Are there enough of those people in your local area who want your services? And then, have you got the skills, of course, to serve that niche? And if you haven't, then is it possible for you to gain those skills? How do you become credible in that marketplace so that they reach out to you?
Thank you. So speaking of loving to and working with people that you like, obviously it's even nicer if you get to then invite them onto your podcast. So I would like to know a bit more about how you've gone about research and engaging guests into this podcast of yours. Yeah,
so if I could give you a little bit of a background to the podcast and the reasons it probably exists, and then I'll follow on with how we get guests, of course. But what we started to do, we realized that as a lot of traditional financial planning firms, I'm sure across the world, only can serve so many people. There's millions of people, and you can only serve so many people, and therefore it has become kind of the financial planning has only really become available for not for many people, I suppose. And therefore I realized that there was an awful lot of people who weren't getting access to the experts that I would get access to. So I get to talk to lawyers and attorneys and medical experts and dietitians and dementia experts and all these different people who know a lot about what goes on in the retirement world. But it was the preserve of a few. And therefore, I was slightly frustrated by that. Why shouldn't everyone have access to this knowledge that I'm getting? Or why should just my affluent clients who come to me get this knowledge? So we started putting on live events. And you may know, of course, and we all know that there are financial advice in the UK has had a bit of a bad rap. There's been some poor practices, and there's a little bit of genuine suspicion, I think, from a lot of consumers about whether they're going to get good advice. How do they find good advice? What is it? So I came up with the brand, the Retirement Cafe, really so I could put on some live events free for the community. So we would hire hotel rooms and we would put on these events, and there was never any idea that we would be trying to sell financial products. We would not be trying to get them on board as financial clients. We didn't even want to really be associated with it initially. We just wanted to go, we're putting on this thing, the Retirement Cafe. Everyone's free to come. It'll put it on a nice hotel. I'll get an expert in to talk about wills or trusts or powers of attorney or dementia or cruising or holidaying or independent living or paying for nursing care or whatever it was that we came up with. And we would put on these free events in the community. And I would kind of host them, but I would then bring in experts to talk about whatever the topic was. They were a raging success. And I don't think just because they were free, they were a success because they were very engaging. People got to meet experts that they wouldn't have met before, ask them live questions, really pick their brains. We'd record them. We shared the recordings afterwards, and they were really were successful. After about a couple of years of doing that, we started to realize that, first of all, they were relatively expensive and time consuming. And I thought, there's got to be a better way of doing this. How can we still get those kind of live events, but get the same knowledge out there? And that's how the podcast was born. Really was basically to take the live format, which we still do occasionally, but take the live format and put it onto the podcast format, that we could then get a larger audience and get more people to gain knowledge of financial stuff that's going on in retirement, and also lifestyle choices or lifestyle knowledge and choices that they can make by getting access to all these wonderful guests that we get on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Justin. That was incredibly insightful. You'll come back on the 24-hour commute show, so we'll hear more from you very soon. So we're going to need to wrap up. So we just need to quickly check in with the people who are undertaking our charity challenges. So I think we're going to check in with Gretchen if she is here, and with James if he is here. But if not, I think we can. I might have to ask my boyfriend, who's also undertaking the Minecraft challenge, and ask him how far we've gone. But what I can see, we are just embellishing it, a lot of it. I think we have the main structure done for the virtual conference room. We're going to, however, we have somebody else who's doing a challenge, and he has taken over from James Mousley with the tire flipping, and that is our very own NextGen fitness coach, who has coached us through the morning commute on how to keep fit. So Steve, if you are here, it would be great to let us know how you're doing. Steve? Well, it looks, oh, there he is.
I wasn't expecting you, so I was t-shirtless and thought nobody needs to see that. So we have t-shirt number 2, hour 2, t-shirt 2. How you doing?
So how far are you? You're doing an Ironman challenge. So how many miles have you gone so far?
25 and a bit.
5 and a bit.
So
well
we're
done.
Getting towards a quarter of the way there. Starting to get a bit delirious, but that's good. You can't get through. Justin will know this. You can't get through endurance things with full control of your faculties. They've got to go away, and then the madness takes over, and it's fine. That's wrong. We're all good. Much happier than I was an hour ago. The worst thing's always thinking about it. It's always much better once you just get involved. But yeah, we're good. So, don't think I'll quite make it under 5 hours, but somewhere close to that. Looking forward to dinner. Might even have some beer later. I've been almost beerless or alcoholless all year because I had loads of things I was supposed to be doing, and they all got cancelled. I couldn't think of a good reason to start drinking again, but I think I have just now. So we shall see. But yeah, we're doing all right.
Steve.
You guys are doing great. Loving your work.
Thank you.
See you later.
All right, Kate, would you like to please wrap up the show?
Certainly, just take myself off mute there. So a quick thank you to the charity challengers. We are really grateful for the support people are showing so far, but we do hope to raise money for as much as we can for our chosen charities. So please click on the links that are put in the chat to donate. And I will be back in half an hour for the next show, where we will have a guest, Rita Cheng from the US here, and I'll be co-hosting with NextGen co-founder Rohan Sivajodi. And I guess actually I'm looking at the clock, it'll be in 14 minutes. So we will see you back here in a few. Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.